I've done a full hour of Italian.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
Actually, that's not quite true. Half an hour in English and half an hour in Italian with a friend called Federico.
Federico?
Yeah.
I have an Italian friend called Federico.
Do you?
I supervised his PhD.
Ah, was he called Fede?
No.
You only ever knew him as Federico.
Hmm.
They do some wicked shortenings, I guess, like we do in English. Actually, I wanted to ask you, the word dude.
D-U-D-E?
Yeah. Well, is that a word you use at all? Like he's a bit of a dude.
I'm just trying to think. Oh, dude. No, it's like it wouldn't be. I wouldn't leap to it. But then also, I noticed that you sent me a text message yesterday you said, "Mate, full stop. You're killing me. Full stop."
And what was the context for me sending those texts to you? Do you remember?
No. This is a podcast in which two friends have serious conversations about silly things and silly conversations about serious things.
I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller.
Welcome to Midlifing.
I don't remember using the word mate comfortably either.
No.
So mate, dude, all of those sorts of, whether they're, those kind of slightly, that sort of bro language.
It is, isn't it? It's a little bit macho.
It sits poorly in my frame of reference because I think when other people were learning how to do that, I probably was really awkward around other men or boys. So I just didn't really...
You didn't learn. Well, I can't imagine, certainly in New Zealand, I can't imagine not using the word mate, or in fact, more so in Australia. It's so common. It's so... and yet your hesitancy just then made me go, oh, I wonder what I was participating in. But dude is just, I might say he's a bit of a dude. Oh, bit of a dude. Oh, dude. Nah, never. I don't reckon.
Why has it come up for you?
Oh, because this happens quite often with when I'm having conversations with Federico, is that he's really interested in learning kind of vernacular things, which I always think is a little bit strange because, of course, getting that stuff right in another language, I mean, you've just described how getting it right in your own language is sometimes a little bit tricky, but in another language, those kinds of things are almost impossible. But he really likes it. So if I might start a message that says, "Hey fella," he's really like, and then asking if I say, "How's things?" He just thinks he's really fascinated by it because it's a complex sentence which is totally not correct. How's things?
How old is he?
Oh. It's funny. I really do hope he's listening at this point because it's a sort of an ongoing joke between us. He's 30 young.
30 young. So he definitely shouldn't be asking you what vernacular to use because you are 50 old.
We did talk about that today. Actually, I said,
yeah.
If you're having to ask the question, you're not too old. It's as soon as.
Yeah.
As soon as you're asking the question, should I be using this word? You are definitely too old. So I think it's good to know that somewhere in the north of Italy, there's a young man running around going, "How's things? Hey fella, hey dudes."
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. But I don't think I would say fella either. Mate, fella.
It's the same ballpark.
Yeah. So, when you meet a room full of people that let's say you go into a classroom context, and you're going to say hello to everybody en masse. How would you greet them?
Well, I don't say guys.
Ah.
I used to. And then you told me off. No, I used to. I definitely used to. And as a sort of an informal, I'm not sure about the first thing I would have said, but I've definitely used guys in the sense of a generic everyone.
Yeah.
But now I just say all. Hi all. Hey everyone. Like that. That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because guys is another one that has always felt odd in my mouth. That guy over there, and I'm like, ooh.
So not even in the plural sense, just generally that.
Yeah, just even if it is a gendered pointing, that guy over there. If somebody says it to me, I go. I have a very gentle gag reflex to it. I don't
I love
actually
the
catch
idea of
myself.
a gentle gag reflex.
Yeah, it's just a slight kind of like, I have to swallow a little harder.
Yeah, a little gip
to keep. Yeah, a gippette, if you will.
A gip is not a word I had experienced or heard until I came to the UK.
Like dude, guy feels so very North American. I think it just because it sits in this kind of American sort of US landscape, the word guy and the word dude. I think dude sort of gets a different kind of a pass for me because it's sort of there's something silly about it. Possibly because I only really hear Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters going, dude, and so it has a different resonance. But
you didn't see the new version, did you? Just to interrupt.
No, I didn't. I didn't see the new version. Is it good?
What makes you think I saw it?
Oh yeah, fair dues.
Fair dues.
That's a phrase for Federico. Fair dues.
Fair dues. Yeah. This is the Federico episode. It was dedicated to you. This is going straight out to you in somewhere in Italy, Federico.
Have you just gently cupped one ear over your over your headphones, like reaching out to Federico in the north of Italy? This one's right into your ear hole.
And as if we're some kind of all through the night. What do you call it? Like it's 3 a.m. and we're playing some really chilled tunes.
Hey,
you've got the perfect voice for it, Lee.
There's a beautiful film that I was thinking about this morning. It's not a beautiful film. You will never see it because it's a horror film, but it is a beautiful film.
I've still got that on my homework, of course. I am going to one day.
This is not the beautiful film that I'm referring to. The film that you've got to go and see is the 2018 Suspiria remake. Yeah. You have to see that because it's beautiful. But the film
I've got it lined up on my friend's Netflix account.
On your friend. The film that you won't see, even though it had a lovely 4K restoration a couple of years ago, is John Carpenter's 1981 classic, The Fog.
I have seen it.
You've seen it?
It is an amazing film.
Isn't it? And the thing that I love about it, he is an amazing director, but the thing I love about it is Adrienne Barbeau's Stevie Wayne, the way she flicks between her normal speaking voice and her radio DJ speaking voice. So she'll be on the phone going, Andy, no, you can't have a Coke and stomach powders. That's not an okay breakfast. Okay, I've got to go. Ahoy there, mateys. And it's just the way she shifts that register. I mean, she's got a lovely voice to listen to speak anyway. But I think it might be the same year, Creepshow. She plays this harridan, this like kind of like
Is
really
Creepshow also a John Carpenter film?
No, it's a George Romero and Stephen King collaboration.
We're turning into a film review show, you realise? We're film and word reviews.
That's all we do.
Yeah,
all we do.
Yeah.
But her vocal register in that film is so like screechy and difficult to listen to, and just the capacity of the human voice to go on journeys. Oh, well, maybe not all human voices, but she's got a particularly good one. So people out there in listening land, Federico, this won't help you learn any new words, but if you want to listen to a very capable performer speaking, enjoy Stevie Wayne. Signing off from KAB News and Weather. That's Antonio Bay, here with you until the morning.
It was basically John Carpenter's version of the shipping news, wasn't it?
I would watch her do the shipping news, though. I mean, if the shipping news had
TV, had
corporeal ghosts that come back to enact their horrifying revenge on a small town.
I've definitely been more influenced by American language than you have. And that's not surprising given New Zealand's strange, the kind of mixture of American and English influences. It's such a strange experience when the first time I went to the United States, going, oh yeah, this is so familiar, so familiar, and then going to the UK and going, oh, this is more familiar.
Really?
Yeah, it's a very. And the time I remember mostly was I just arrived in Philadelphia when those planes flew into the buildings on September 11 in 2001. I just left New York City and I was in Philadelphia, and the aftermath of those attacks in the US and the strange feeling of being a foreigner. Exacerbated or heightened by the kind of general response to those attacks. So I felt completely like a foreigner. It was far more so than under normal circumstances. But in October that year, maybe November, so this is, 3 months after? 2 months, not even. So say 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks after I flew to London. And my sense of relief was really, really strong. It was a very strange experience.
There's a line in Hamlet, which I thought you were
going to say the fog.
No, that would be great if I could somehow tie it back to what I'd already said. I was just thinking about that idea of the collectivity of grief. I think Claudius is talking about in a fairly mendacious way, because he's the one who killed him.
What's mendacious? You mean horrible?
Full of lies.
Oh, yes.
Lying.
Yes.
Mendacity.
Yep.
Mendacious. Bob taught me that word ages ago, and I really love it. And every time I say the word mendacious, I feel like I owe her 5 pence because it's one of Bob's words. I should give her royalties on it. So Claudius is talking about the death of his brother, who he killed. Spoiler alert for a 500-year-old play. Sorry, everyone. And
by the way,
Claudius did it.
In Italian, mentire is to lie. So
mentire.
Yeah, mentire.
Mentire.
Yeah, good. But just so you know, the root obviously is the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he talks about the idea of the whole of Denmark. The whole country has a contracted brow of woe.
Oh,
it's beautiful, isn't it? That idea that they're all kind of pulling the same face at the same time.
Oh.
And I was just thinking about the collectivity of grief there that you talk about, and what we've learned about the United States over the last, I think probably since 2016, from the outside at any rate, is how disparate it is.
Yeah.
So in many respects, that coming together is quite it's quite a powerful thing, isn't it?
I remember it being written and talked about at the time of the coming together of the country. You know, that people felt safer on the streets than they normally would. So all the usual divisions, all the usual prejudices fell away because there was a much bigger other. And it was an extreme situation, clearly, but it was also strange because I don't have any relationship to a flag. Like, I would never spend money on a flag. It doesn't matter what country I'm talking about here, but certainly not a New Zealand flag. And yet the relationship, of course, to the Stars and Stripes in America is seems so fundamental to how they understand themselves. That was one of the collective things. I remember all the conversations about running out of flags, that it was really hard to buy Stars and Stripes at the time.
In the aftermath of Brexit, seeing European flags or seeing the George's Cross and that sense of division that was visible, and people wanting to kind of communicate their sense of in or out.
Yeah, putting a stake in the, a flag in the ground. Like, this is
absolutely
this is
that.
where I stand.
Absolutely that. And I think I've always had a little bit of a struggle with the English flag. It feels like it's been co-opted by narratives that don't.
Are you talking about St. George's flag as opposed to the Union flag?
I am. It feels hard to be patriotic in England because it's been co-opted by far-right narratives.
Yeah.
That particular symbol skews right.
Yeah, it's the same as the southern. What's the southern flag called? The
Confederate flag.
The Confederate flag.
I think you would probably get people in the UK arguing with you that the St. George's flag is not as
nakedly.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that there's some kind of equivalence there.
I think putting up a Confederate flag at this point in history is a fuck you.
But I have quite a strong memory of I was laughing because I used to sit in this big vinyl brown chair, of course, 1970s, with my dad. And I used to have such a strong physical memory of being sort of squeezed into the chair, even as I got a little bit bigger, and him kind of hugging me and holding on to me. But he used to do this thing, often while we were watching the news, I was never wanting to watch the news, but it was just that feeling of being next to him. But he used to do this thing where with his finger, he'd just sort of slowly, really subtly reach over and try and jab me in the neck. And I used to scrunch up my shoulder to my neck to stop him doing it, or to try and trap his finger. And but he used to. So there's this kind of constant. It was like a constant background hum of a game between us, which was the antithesis of the sense of comfort I felt in that particular chair. And I can't remember. Oh yes, I can remember now while I was telling the story. But it's quite a strong memory of his abhorrence of anything to do with nationalism. And so I was very young, learning by osmosis, effectively, that the way in which flags function as devices or symbols of nationalism. And it wasn't like he was saying this flag or that flag, or he was just saying all flags. It stays with me today for sure. I have so little interest. I don't mean I have political interest in the way flags function for sure, but in terms of flying one, nah, I could never do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what circumstances would have me put a flag up.
I think it is an ongoing theme in a way, which is we can never know the context with which we carry anything, or for example, even say anything. Like, even some of these conversations, if you lifted something I'd said or something you'd said out of the context within which it was happening, or even if you didn't know us, so you hadn't spent, since October listening to these conversations and getting to know us in a particular way, that pulled out of context, they would be, terrible.
Yeah.
And also to a greater or lesser extent meaningless.
Yeah, and I think that's for me what flags and bags and all of those kinds of external signifiers do. And I think it is about the lack of context and that sense of allying yourself to a particular position without the opportunity to then talk it through.
Oh, I was started filling out a survey. I belong to the it's effectively the teachers' union, and they had a survey about free speech in universities, and I started filling out the survey, and I don't know how far through it I was. Maybe I was a third, maybe a quarter, maybe a half. I had to stop, and I had to stop because it was so clear the political position of the people who'd written the fucking questions was so obvious, and it was so clear that they hadn't thought through any of the nuances of any of this conversation. I had to stop. It was so frustrating. It was so frustrating that I'm not represented. The things I've been thinking about this thing are not even represented in the options I have to choose. And I don't think I'm an outlier. It was so frustrating.
But even if you are an outlier,
I should still.
You should still be represented, because a questionnaire is supposed to be neutral. No, forget that. I'm not even worried about the union. I'm worried about the methodology. A questionnaire that's been well designed. And this is frustrating, isn't it? Because we're talking about an academic union that should have access to people who are working in the social sciences and therefore should be able to construct a questionnaire that is neutral. I was being
funneled into like sheep when they're at the freezing works in Wainawa. It was so frustrating. Flags. It's the same thing, right? It's or the same thing as you've just described, which is, wow, shorn of context, this is a complex thing that really deserves people having conversations and nuanced conversations and all those kinds of things. But nah.
Is Gavin Williamson a prick? Yes. Would I wear a T-shirt to that effect? No.
I mean, it just sums it up beautifully.
There's a conversation to be had around why he's a prick. There's a conversation to be had around why the stuff he said recently, the idea of dead-end degrees, really needs to be interrogated. I was talking to Bob yesterday morning about cloning.
Gavin Williamson, just for people who may not know, because not all our listeners in Kazakhstan, for example, may not know that Gavin Williamson is the Minister of Education?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the UK. And it's hard to... He doesn't seem to be doing the best job for lots of different reasons, which we could go into. But go. You were talking with Bob.
We talked about it in the past, but I think we've always cut him out because I think, my gentle gag reflex has been activated. But I think we have discussed the fact that he feels to be, or the way he communicates himself in the world, he seems to be singularly unqualified to talk about education. Because he seems disinterested in it. I was talking to Bob yesterday about cloning, and I asked the stupid question because I was thinking about Barbra Streisand's dogs.
I thought you were talking about Star Wars, but no, you were talking about Barbra Streisand's dogs.
Well, I was actually
talking about the Clone Wars.
I was thinking about The Bad Batch. Have you been watching it?
Not yet. Is it good?
It's very good.
Is it really?
Yeah. I've been really enjoying it.
Is it on? Did you get Disney Plus?
Your friend's Netflix account that
you've got
borrowed.
A friend's. Send me the password. In fact, just tell me the password now.
Shout out to Terry and James. Thank you very much.
Terry and James, could you flip me an email and just... It's at info@midlife.net.
So I've been watching The Bad Batch and really, really enjoying it. And then I was thinking about Barbra Streisand's dogs. But you know that she cloned her dogs.
I didn't know that. Why would you think I'd know that?
Oh, because I thought everybody knew. Barbra Streisand cloned her dogs, famously cloned her dogs.
And what was the second bit of you? She cloned her dogs and...
and that's it. She cloned her dogs.
Do they exist, the cloned versions?
Oh, yeah. They wander around the world being little versions of, or presumably now fully grown versions of the dogs that have now died. So she loved them so much, and she is so rich, she invested in cloning. She invested in that process of hundreds of thousands of dollars to get versions of the dogs.
My jaw has seriously dropped. But
the technology exists.
Yeah, but just because we have the technology doesn't mean we need to rebuild him.
But yeah, Steve Austin, yes,
man, barely alive. We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We can make him fitter, faster, stronger. Was there a $3 million woman later?
No, it was the $6 million man and the Bionic Woman,
played by
Lindsay
They didn't
Wagner.
Make her cheaper.
Yeah, she fell out of... her parachute didn't go.
That's right, I remember
She was introduced as a girlfriend to Lee Majors' character, Steve Austin, and then had a spin-off show. And she became the Bionic Woman. And her special powers, as well as running in slow motion, she could hear rather than see. So she had bionic hearing. God, I loved those shows.
Oh,
it was so good.
Mia, I love them too. Certainly the $6 Million Man.
So Barbra Streisand.
You were talking to Bob about cloning.
I was talking to Bob about cloning because I was thinking about The Bad Batch, and then I was thinking about Barbra Streisand's dogs, and we were just lying in bed in the morning, and then I went, Bob, why can't they clone people? And Bob said, they can clone people, Lee. It's just we're not supposed to. It's like, why are we not supposed to clone people? Because of the ethics of it, Lee. Because it's ethically problematic.
It's great that you've got a teacher that you...
It's so good that I've got somebody in the house who will tell me why we can't do things. And then that led to us having a conversation about why art becomes so important, because the science exists, but it's kind of arts and humanities that remind us to have those conversations about, well, what happens when? And effectively, that's what The Bad Batch is doing. I think I was thinking about this in relation to that, that broader conversation, and Bob saying that's why we need arts, and that's why we need humanities, because we want to have these conversations, because the science can do it. And if we only invest in the science and we only value STEM subjects, and we don't have the conversations about why we should or shouldn't do something, just can we do it, which is effectively where Gavin Williamson's argument of dead-end subjects will take us. It will take us to that place. So that can't be put on a T-shirt.
It certainly can't be. But can I say I am super impressed. I had long forgotten your Gavin Williamson T-shirt, but that is
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm super impressed that you held on through all those tangents.
They might not sound quite so tangential when I cut out a significant portion of the verbiage.
Yesterday I went and saw a friend, met up with a friend who I hadn't seen since, well, possibly December 2019, but certainly early 2020, a very close and dear friend. And we hugged, and it was one of those hugs that stayed, where you just get to rest in it. And it was so profoundly bodily and so profoundly beautiful in the way in which you get to feel someone's body in the only way a sense of, here is this person to me. This person is here. And it was so moving and so beautiful. And it also did remind me, we weren't even close to breathing on each other, because in a really deep hug, you're breathing past the person anyway. But I mean, forget about the science. I mean, I was quite happy not to hug people for however long, but it was so moving. And it was like I know we're so far from the end of this pandemic, but it felt like such an amazing marker of a change in it. It was really, really just staggeringly beautiful.